Thanks, Brad. Hi, everyone. My name is Abby Meyer. I am a 2L here at Colorado Law. I am the privacy coordinator for Silicon Flatiron Student Group, as well as president of the Colorado Disability Justice Alliance Club. And today it is my honor to introduce the moderator and panelists for this afternoon's debate, whether children under 16 should be banned from the internet. Starting off first, I would like to introduce our moderator, Vivek Krishnamurthy, who is the associate professor here at Colorado Law. For the proposition side, we have Leta Jones, Provost Distinguished Associate Professor at Georgetown University, and Zahra Takhshid, Assistant Professor of Law at the University of Denver Sturm College of Law. Against the proposition, we have Paul Professor of Law and Chief Data Officer at Georgetown University Law Center. And finally, Reid, Associate Professor of Law at Colorado Law. Please join me in giving them a welcoming hand.
Dearly beloved, we are here today to welcome to the Silicon Flatiron's Flagship Conference, Flagship Debate. My name is Vivek Krishnamurthy. I direct the Tech Law Clinic here, and I am the law school's resident Canadian. And I am very pleased to be moderating this parliamentary-style debate. I'm especially thankful to Silicon Flatirons for allowing me to moderate and paying the 25% tariff on my services. Hopefully it'll be a lot of fun. I believe this is the 8th annual debate here at Silicon Flatirons, and this year it feels really urgent. Why? Well, the Supreme Court has basically said the president is a king. So if you're going to learn to debate, let's do it using the best traditions of a real monarchy. So that's what we're going to do today. And our proposition today, slide, resolved. Children under 16 should be banned from the internet. This is a proposition that no parent could support, and yet I believe these are all parents. So we'll see how it goes. So speaking on behalf of the proposition, we have Meg Jones, Provost Distinguished Associate Professor from Georgetown University, and Zahra Takhshid, Assistant Professor of Law just down the road at DU. And speaking against are Paul Ohm from Georgetown Law and our very own Reid. All right, so how is this going to work? We are going to have 3 rounds in this debate. We're going to start with 4-minute speeches from the proposition, then the opposition, and backwards. Then we're going to have a quaint tradition called question period, where everyone gets to ask each other questions. And then there will be concluding remarks. But how do you win this debate, you may ask? Well, this is how. We are now going to poll you. So navigate to this link. Snap that QR code, vote early, vote often. No. Actually, vote just once. Because what we'll do is rerun the poll at the end of the proceedings and see who moved the needle the most. All right, we're going to give this a minute. I can fill the air if I need to. Oh, yes, I should fill it with the rules of parliamentary debate. And there are 3 basic rules. 1, no taking of snuff. The second, there shall be no brandishing of swords. And the third is there will be no other disorderly conduct, or you will be ejected by the Sergeant of Arms. I was hoping that Attorney General Weiser was still here to do that, personally, but he seems to have left. Okay, everyone had a chance to vote. Let's put it up, can we? Here come the results, drum roll. Ooh.
All right.
68.4 disagree. 31.3% agree. We will come back to this at the end to see where we are.
We got changing numbers.
Oh, votes are still coming in. Irregularities. Recount, please. All right, we're going to go with this. 86 responses. Anyone else going once, going twice? I have a lot of roles, auctioneer, moderator. All right, let's get kicked off. It is an enormous pleasure for me to welcome the honorable member from Georgetown, Meg Jones, to speak for the proposition. You have 4 minutes. And I forgot that time will be kept by the amazing Mac Villagomez Tapia, who will give you lights here, and you will see them over there. Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. If anyone needs more convincing that the internet is a horrible place for children, my brilliant teammate is going to take that part of our argument. So that's all coming. I want to convince you that we adults should not want them on there anyway. We should stop trying to make the internet kid-friendly. It's not happening, and we shouldn't want it to. Child-proofing the internet is failing technically, it's failing legally, and it's failing culturally. Parents are overwhelmed trying to manage online risks. Platforms are contorting themselves to provide different versions of their content and tools, and policymakers are creating Byzantine rules that satisfy nobody. There is a simpler solution, and this is a simple solution that Lisa Hone, I bet, would call great, not one of the stupid ones that you should look too closely at. Making the internet adults only. It's cleaner, it requires minimal regulation, and can be implemented through age verification. The technical, I'm gonna go through each of those failures. The technical reality of child-proofing the internet is a mess, and it's just getting worse. Parents know they can't manage online risks. They are begging for help despite an endless barrage of parental controls, content filters, services, products. Every safety measure becomes another IT burden put on parents, often mothers, and those that could do the most to shore this up do very little. The App Store lets apps self-identify the appropriate age. Researchers have found hundreds of inappropriate content within those settings. Android and Apple don't do labels for data protection compliance. Parents take to form. If you go to Reddit, you will find it is full of parents trying to figure out YouTube kid filters and why their kid keeps seeing disturbing things on YouTube Kids. Age verification, on the other hand, is already commonplace. 8 state IDs are already in Apple Wallet. There's a Louisiana digital ID. We use these for all kinds of adult things like online banking, alcohol delivery. And if motivated, modern operating systems could provide age verification with a one-time check that sends a simple adult signal. Legally, things are even messier. The California Age-Appropriate Design Code, the latest attempt to child-proof the internet, was blocked by federal courts, and for good reason. The law is a complex regulatory maze of detailed risk assessments, a demand to collect additional information to guess at age, and to make subjective judgments about what is appropriate content for kids at different developmental stages. The courts found this law unconstitutional. They said it violated the First Amendment, and that it created so much uncertainty that many websites couldn't figure out how to comply with it. Existing laws that are supposed to protect kids like FERPA and COPA create a regulatory network that loopholes develop out of, so parents can't figure out where their kids' data is when they ask schools, when they ask ed tech companies. A simpler solution is to simply kick them off entirely. Culturally, we should also not want the internet to be Disney World. The internet, at its best, is a weird and wild place. Moms should be able to share breastfeeding tricks and tips and content without being blocked. Adults should be able to flirt on dating apps without stumbling upon teenagers. The internet should be a place for debating controversial political ideas and disturbing news. By trying to make it a place for kids, we milk toastify it, that's a Paul Ohm word, into something that is bland, barely nutritious, and easily digestible. Not what we need out of the internet. Thank you.
I thank Professor Jones for opening, and before calling on the first speaker for the opposition, I regret to say that I forgot to mention that today's debate is meant to educate, entertain, elucidate. but the views expressed by the debaters may not necessarily be theirs, but except for him, because he believes everything he says. So, yes, Professor Ohm from Georgetown, please open the opposition. Thank you. You have 4 minutes.
It was awesome to hear my former debating partner, Meg Jones. I didn't realize that what she was laying out was essentially when Biff Tanner becomes in charge of the U.S. So what she calls weird and wild places, like this smutty red light district that the internet. So I actually might be a little bit more on board with that. But let me begin in a kind of contradictory place, which is the internet is terrible, right? It's got fundamentally a broken business model. Everywhere you look, precarity, misery, division, and we visit some of the worst of this on our children. Addiction, body image, bullying. Wait, what side are we on? No, it's terrible. At the same time, the internet is wonderful. If we're going to ban the internet, we're going to ban Zoom calls with grandparents. We're going to ban teachers enterprisingly finding other teachers around the world to connect their classrooms. We're going to ban Wikipedia and Sesame Street and Khan Academy. We're going to ban self-exploration and self-learning and self-improvement. We're going to make it harder for kids who are isolated in communities where they don't see people like themselves find people, whether they are transgender kids or gay kids or maybe even MAGA kids, find one another across the kind of tendrils of the internet that have brought us all together. And then there's a kind of more fundamental problem, which is the internet is everything. If we're going to ban access to the internet, and that's the proposition the other side has the burden of defending, it means that anything is connected in any way whatsoever can no longer be fair game for them. And so we've got this kind of Montessori field vision where we're all going to whittle pieces of wood and throw them to our kid, but you can't give them a television, you can't give them a music player, you can't give them anything because it's all on the internet. This is a classic case of literally throwing the baby out with the bathwater. The internet is terrible. We need to fix it. We need to get together to fix it. We need to fix it for our kids. We need to fix it as engaged parents. And the way we're going to do that is to band together and make it better. But if instead we have some kind of cockeyed notion that we'll take a 2-year pause where somehow the kids will miraculously disappear, and then we'll go about fixing it for the kids of the future, I just don't see that happening. And I think it turns a blind eye to the real problems we need to solve. I think we're better off banding together, wrapping our arms around one another, and making the internet a better place for our kids.
I thank the honourable member for his remarks, and I now call upon Professor Takhshid to show us why babies are not being thrown out with bathwater on their side.
Okay, thank you so much. So I think in an attempt to win your hearts, Paul forgot to mention the premise again that I want to make it clear. We're talking about banning the internet for children under the age of 16, not everyone. And to add to the reasons, maybe expand a little bit on some anecdote that's why internet is not appropriate for children under the age of 16. I'll go through some examples. So I'll look at it from physical safety, I'll explore some privacy safety, mental health, and some broader implications in terms of liability regime. So in terms of physical safety, why you shouldn't want your child to be on the internet is because of how dangerous it is. And I appreciate my opponent's premise that, yes, it is a bad place. And I'll take that one and continue that. That is specifically why we don't want them on there, because there are people, predators, that are trying to find children online. They are able, with the data that's available, to almost find almost a specific location of a child, depending on how much data that person has shared. So this is really endangering their physical safety. With respect to physical safety, you can also move on beyond the predators on the internet and even look at it from, let's imagine everybody is good actors. Children themselves may put their physical safety into danger. For example, you have Snapchat filters that children use, and they drive on unsafely and they get on accident. And this is a teenager, not even 16, even above 16 years old, who get on accidents because of these AI-powered filters that are on Snapchat. And what do they do after almost dying? They post another Snapchat of themselves saying that I made it alive. So I wonder about that frontal lobe development and whether we want that for our children. In terms of privacy safety, don't get me even started on how AI has both empowered us, but also really ruined all the privacy endeavors of privacy scholars by making it so easy to mimic voices, to have deepfake images. This is not something that you had to go to school to learn nowadays. It's so accessible and so easily available to children that, and also to adults, again, going to bad actor kind of a position, that you can really abuse and manipulate children by mimicking voices of their friends, their parents, and even themselves, endangering one another using those type of synthetic content and being able to create those things. And I don't think we want that. Mental health, addiction, you used to think that it was only for nicotine. Think again, with all the AI and these app services that are available, social media has become a really addiction for a lot of us. And I don't want to point fingers, but even adults are having trouble putting down their phones. So imagine what a child would be like if they had this accessibility to social media and other platforms that are supposed to be kid-friendly. The age is now 13 years old for a lot of these apps that allow children to join. And in addition to addiction, you can think about all the body image issues that have come out of these social media platforms being available online. I'm almost out of time, so I'll run through some of them quickly. In terms of broader implication, I just wanted to point out how difficult it is to actually bring accountability to these AI-generated and AI-based companies. So because of all the conversations that we have had in this conference, and also we'll continue to have tomorrow, you'll see that liability regime is not so clear, and even prosecutors wrote a letter that said, be careful with respect to AI and children, general attorneys, and how difficult it is to bring lawsuits. Okay, I'm going over and I'll come back to some of my points.
Thank you very much for that, for those illuminating remarks. I now call upon Professor Reid from Colorado Law right here to bring us to a close of our opening round.
Thank you, Your Honor. Is that the right terminology?
Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, as with my erudite colleagues, I sympathize greatly with our opponents. Kids face genuine danger and harms online that we have heard about all day. But even if you believe every word that our opponents have said, you have to remember that this debate proposition is in the passive voice. Children should be banned. And when we convert it, as we should in a law school, to active voice, we start asking by whom and how will they be banned. We will realize that there's no real way to effectively accomplish this, at least not without terrible consequences for kids and adults. We instead need to help kids be online safely. Keeping kids out of digital spaces is a fundamentally difficult problem because the internet lacks any kind of identity mechanism at any layer. On the internet, no one knows you are a dog and no one knows you are a kid either. Contrary to my colleague Professor Jones' argument, the impossible task of childproofing the internet is essentially the same problem as making it adults only. Most applications don't know who their users are. We've heard that app stores know. App stores know what their users tell them. To the extent they know more than that, it's reliant on the collection of a substantial amount of usage data that they garner from manipulating their users into using their applications. And they're not going to have that when we kick kids off the internet. Internet service providers don't know with any reliability who's accessing their networks. The devices that connect to the internet don't know with certainty the identity of their users. And when we try to impose regulations at each of these layers, we are going to create whole new problems. At the application layer, we're going to require some kind of authentication mechanism that's going to face inevitable trade-offs between efficacy. Think about those buttons that say, are you over the age of 18, or you enter your birthday, which we all know kids don't tell the truth to. But we get more elaborate methods that try to authoritatively verify identity, and they have serious trade-offs. Privacy, because as Lisa noted earlier, verifying identity requires the accumulation of a vast trove of sensitive data. Complexity, because kids are smart and they want to use the internet. Now, we're going to go to internet service providers. We're going to require them to collect more invasive information about family members and authenticate devices and users. We're going to require public internet access providers like libraries to collect detailed information about their patrons. For devices, we're now going to start regulating and surveilling parents and public school teachers who are already overworked and underpaid. And we're going to have to overcome clever teenagers and preteens who will find ways to work around any ban. Moreover, and I'm sorry to Attorney General Weiser, but he's not here, we lack the institutions to solve these problems. There is no agency at a federal level with the authority or expertise to do this. Look at the FTC's dismal implementation of COPPA, for example. We have a historically dysfunctional Congress. We have an executive captured by an oligarch that has no sophistication in developing serious or nuanced tech policy. Contrary to the comments earlier, though, things get even worse at the state level. We have the internet policy keystone cops in states like Texas who not only don't know how to solve this problem for real, they can't even explain how their laws work in who they apply to when they defend them before the Supreme Court. And that's the best case scenario. This is states that don't know what they're doing. We're going to have states that are trying to harm LGBTQ, immigrant, non-white, and disabled kids. And we know from FOSTA-SESTA what happens when we try and kick marginalized communities off the internet. And I only have 20 seconds, so I'll just say, even if we manage to figure the legal mechanics and technical mechanics out, we're almost certain to violate the First Amendment if we accomplish all of this. Trying to ban the kids from the internet is no more feasible from trying to ban them from any other space that they face dangers. In the end, we have got to use the imperfect mechanisms that we have to protect kids with the knowledge that they are going to be on the internet. We need tech companies to operate with that knowledge. We need kids to be able to trust their parents to help them work through the dangers of the internet. We don't want to force kids into the shadows of the internet without any support. So if you care about kids, don't ban them from the internet, fix the internet, vote for me and Paul. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Reid. I want to mention that your governance problems are easily fixed by my compatriots. We are available if you need our help. Now to question period. I am going to basically give everyone on each side opportunity to ask one or two questions. So I'm going to have the proposition start.
Okay.
Who would like to start?
I'm going to start.
And you may direct your question to the other team or to a particular member.
Yes. So thank you. I will just direct it to the other team. So you say because kids are smart, they're going to find a way around it. What's the point of it? I think smoking is bad for children, and we have laws that limit and ban it for smoking. But I'm sure that also drinking. I'm sure that there are kids enough, smart enough to be able to bypass that law, have people buy them cigarettes or alcohol. Does that mean that we should just get rid of it altogether? Or find a better way?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I think the important thing here is to remember that the consequences that we are trying to avoid here are not the same when we're talking about the internet as when we're talking about cigarettes and alcohol. There's no particular upside. This may be a controversial proposition, Paul. I don't know if you agree. I don't think kids should be smoking cigarettes, but I think there are useful things that kids can do on the internet. I don't think kids under the age of 16, right as they're practicing to go drive, should be drinking. I think there's a real serious harm to be solved here. We've got real trade-offs in this context, and while that's a nice slogan, I think we have to focus on the real problems that are going to occur if we try and stop kids from going on the internet, the real dilemmas that we face in implementing those solutions.
All right, time for a question from the opposition.
When we divided into teams, I thought the gender dynamics of this are going to be terrible, but let me lean into this question. So a single mother, fixed income, 2 jobs, gets home and is hoping to cook dinner for her kids, and all she wants is to stick that iPad in front of her kid for an hour and have some peace and cook a meal and then engage with the kid more directly later, why would you take that away from her?
Well, let me start by saying dads cook too.
Here.
Yes, they do. Yes, dads do cook too, but I think our policy proposals, our policy solutions to vulnerable populations should never be to make everybody more vulnerable. That should not hold us back. I think that parents, kids, families absolutely need help. Putting them on a risky, unsupervised internet is not my idea of a gold standard solution.
Yeah, I second that, definitely.
All right.
And there's TV. There's still TV that you can turn on and let your child
PBS
enjoy.
Kids is still a thing.
Pack of cigarettes.
All right. Proposition. Question for the other side.
Yes, we have sunshine and rain cloud that we got. And so I'm trying to sort through those, but both of you talked about balance. And so I'm wondering how bad it would have to get for you to say, okay, we're ready to pull the trigger and do something dramatic, like to envision something. It has gotten so bad that the harms do outweigh the benefits.
Yeah, and again, it's the totalizing nature of the proposition that has me most worried. And so I agree the internet's bad. I've said that already. And I can imagine that for certain contexts, it gets worse and worse and worse. And so what I'd like to do is, with a scalpel instead of a meat cleaver, let's address the bad problems as they're bad and as they get worse. I can't imagine a place where I would say the internet is so categorically terrible in every one of its guises and every one of its ways that the only thing we could do is like burn it down and start over. And so I guess there is no limit that you're describing. We're not there yet, at the very least.
Your side.
So this is a question for Professor Jones. Once we have, in your deeply technocratic world, which of course doesn't exist, but we'll pretend for the sake of argument that we've established ways to reliably identify everyone online. I'm worried about that there aren't going to be any guardrails about using that identity information for other purposes other than keeping kids offline. How are you going to avoid using these mechanisms to bar adults, including people from protected classes, from being able to access particular kinds of content that we might associate with age, for example?
So one of the things that I actually love about this debate is that it is pretty radical, and it prompts us to think more radically about a problem that I think every panelist said was real. And so my response is that this requires like infrastructure, rethinking how we do some of this, and investing in age verification that is privacy preserving. And we have some developments in this. There's a whole industry of age verification where they will say, we're not keeping any of this information, we just show that you're an adult, and then it gets deleted. We have versions of this when you go to the airport and the sign says, we're not keeping this picture, we're just saying that it's you. Maybe you don't trust that, right? But this is an investment in doing this at an operating system level. The idea is that if we really care deeply about this, we could build an infrastructure that does support keeping kids out of lots of spaces that we think are unhealthy for them.
Can I add something? I also think maybe we can learn from the past. So when first GDPR came into effect, everybody thought that's the end of innovation and technology, and what are these tech companies going to do with all these regulations that are getting in the way of innovation? But that turned out to be wrong. They found a way to comply, and I think the same goes for children's safety and online protection. We'll find a way. We first have to make it mandatory.
Okay, question from the proposition side for the opposition.
Yeah, so I think something that Blake mentioned was, again, children their identity being used. And correct me if I'm wrong, did you actually mean that you have children whose data is being used, and if we take that away, then what are these companies are going to do with their design of safety mechanism and age verification? So going back to something that my colleague said, which I loved, which is making money off of children is weird. So is that what you're proposing?
That was in a Zoom meeting.
I agree. What I'm trying to get at is I think there is a sort of canard that makes the rounds that, of course, the tech companies know how old their users are because, and how do we know that? Well, they're able to target ads with incredible precision that specify things like the demographics to which they belong. And the point I'm trying to make is that's a fundamentally different exercise than understanding canonically how old someone is in order to stop them from using the service. In the first instance, we are dependent on the use of the service and the conflation of that data with other data about the person to arrive at an inference about their age. It's not a canonical understanding of it. If we say, we want to know canonically exactly who this person is so we can stop them from using the service, that's a fundamentally different set of data that comes from a fundamentally different set of sources. And so I just want to disabuse us of the notion that just because the tech companies target kids based on their age, which they do, which I think is terrible, and frankly, I'd be in support of regulating that practice and stopping them from doing that. That is a fundamentally different problem from trying to get them to not serve kids at all. It's a different issue.
I'd like to use my privilege as moderator to question the premise on accuracy of ad targeting because I continue to get ads for shampoo. But now for a question from the proposition.
Okay, so let me paint a word picture for you. See John. John's got a full beard. John works a job. John gets home from school and job and wants to do some research on going to the prom, taking the driver's test, filing taxes, college applications, because John is 15 and John is a junior in high school. Why 16? I understand why you'd want to keep the internet from babies and toddlers and maybe even elementary school kids, but you're defending a line at 16 when you're talking about some people who have richer, fuller, more mature lives than I will ever have and need the lifeline that the connectivity of the world gives them.
Oh, sorry,
I think you already have.
Yeah, so a lot of things happen when you're 16. You start thinking about colleges, you start taking tests, you get a driver's license, which a lot of age verification systems, which makes age verification often much easier. And a lot of the aspects that we think kids need the internet for, market solutions. Like there are ways that I think things will be filled in, especially things like college applications. I wouldn't say that kids have been doing great searching the internet for the best ways to get into college anyways. It's really the blind leading the blind. And 16, you're like starting to think about what it's like to have adult responsibilities like driving. I actually really like the driving metaphor, that we help kids learn the responsibilities of a very dangerous thing where they can get out and have really dramatic impacts on other people. We help them take on that very adult responsibility, but as teenagers. And so we're not waiting till full adulthood, but meeting a couple of those milestones that the technology can also mirror.
And this is why we should also invest in school counselors. Just because people and children have these kind of questions doesn't mean that we should give them something that's risky, harmful, dangerous. We should find other ways that they can find answers to these questions, which is investing in our public schools and counselors at such schools. So.
All right, let's have one more round of questions from the proposition to the opposition. If you have one.
Do you want us to have that?
Or we could move on to the next round.
I already asked that one. Yeah.
Going once. Any questions on your side?
I have a question.
Yeah.
I have a question. I would love to know what you guys think will work better.
Right. I mean, it's not filtering. So notice that we're not all in on filtering, because I agree with the critics who say that these filters are subject to a lot of the same constraints that Blake has been talking about with age verification. What I have in mind, and God knows our society is not great at mustering this kind of will, is a all of society effort to help our parents, to help our teachers, to help our librarians do more to work with their kids to understand the risks, do more with the tech companies to name and shame, and to get them to do a lot of kind of self-regulatory things, but lots and lots and lots of things short of the ban that you all are supporting.
All right, last question from the opposition.
All right, this is probably more of a comment than a question, but
I'm sorry, that's not allowed.
It's just inherent in the question. Many of the laws along these lines that we have proposed for both in the early days of the internet and for media past have been deemed unconstitutional by the Supreme Court under the First Amendment, and many more narrowly scoped than what we are talking about here. How does the incredible breadth of this ban that you're proposing possibly survive constitutional scrutiny?
My ban is content neutral. And it's about access for kids, and I will roll the dice on this one.
Fighting words. All right. Excellent exchange of views in our question period. And now it's time for our concluding remarks. And we will go in reverse order. Professor Reid, please.
All right.
Bring us home.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I know I'm supposed to respond here, but I've got to give a message to my kiddo who's actually watching this debate for real at home over the internet right now. Now, I'm not going to tell you my kid's age or pander. Put a picture on the screen because I care about kids' privacy, but I love you very much. I know when we were preparing for this debate, you heard that some people might not want kids like you to use the internet, and I know you couldn't believe that. And I know you've heard some scary things from the adults on stage today, but I don't want you to worry, because I know that you count on the internet to learn. When you learned a foreign language online last year, that was pretty cool. When you and Grandma download sheet music for piano practice, nature documentaries, I know you love those. And when you're doing your homework and putting together your presentations, I know the internet's important to you. Now, you've heard some scary things. There are some scary things online. And you're going to have to keep learning about them, and we're going to work through them together, me and you and Mama, as long as everyone in the room today votes for Paul and Dada. So please don't disappoint my kiddo. Vote against the proposition. Thanks very much.
Thank you for those rousing remarks. Professor Takhshid, how do you respond?
I think it's bad to use emotion in shifting voting, but maybe I'll chip in a little bit. I want to talk to you parents out there, guardians who have children and who are desperately thinking about their future. I want to say that imaginary friend is no longer imaginary. Now your child has access to this also used to be an imaginary friend who can talk, who has a voice, who hears what your child tells them and gives them an answer based on data that it has, but your child doesn't know that it's all about mathematics. Your child might think that this is a real human out there in the fantasy world who is talking to them and who is answering their questions. And I think that's a scary world. I don't want children to have access to those kind of AIs and now have AI companions who answers questions without even knowing anything about your child or actually learning so much about your child that it just makes it so scary for them to have that much information. So if you want a world where children are not able to have these AI companions and are not able to get advice when they don't want to talk to you and they're mad at you, you don't want that AI to tell the child that it's not so crazy that some children kill their parents. So if you don't want that, which is based on true story, you can look it up, vote for us and get those children off of internet.
Now, all that is left is the clash of the Georgetown Titans. Professor Ohm.
I love not wanting to appeal to emotion and then ending with patricide. even if I could somehow get behind a ban in 2000 or 2005, 2010, I really can't get on board in 2025. And it goes back to a novel I read in 1995. There's a book called The Diamond Age by Neil Stephenson. Has anyone read this book? Stevenson's a wonderful and problematic author at the same time. The Diamond Age is the kind of same mix of contradictions of all his writing. Like, there's a bunch of messy stuff about nanotechnology. It's a pretty dire, dystopic, cyberpunk world that he spins out. But at the heart of the book is a young girl named Nell. Nell lives in poverty. Nell lives with a single mother who brings home a series of problematic and terrible boyfriends who abuse Nell. Nell's life is basically as bad as can be until one day her brother brings home a book called The Young Ladies Illustrated Primer. And I remember in 1995 reading about the book, and Stevenson, in his masterful way, describes the fact that this is a book that's alive. This is a book that will tell you stories that have never been told before, that will put stories with your child as the star of this series, that will take the stuffed animals and make them towering figures and tales of fantasy, but more importantly, is a book about betterment and improvement and teaching skills and helping children like Nell survive. And what has astonished me from the very first time I used ChatGPT and Midjourney is I've realized for the first time in human history, we're going to get the Young Ladies Illustrated Primer, that it's about to become a magical time to be a child if we don't screw it up, that we're going to be able to create tools that the rest of us wished we could have had, and I don't want to stand in the way of that. It's a dark book, it's got a lot of dark history, but there's this core at the heart of it that is so sweet and endearing and wonderful for children, and I want to guide the rest of us there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Professor Jones, please.
Thank
wrap us
you.
up.
My kids are at home reading real books. So they have not this magic AI book. And I don't think I'm speaking to Blake's kid either, because if research is accurate, he clocked out of this after 6 minutes. Doing something else. I'm not paying any attention to that. Our society has long recognized that certain privileges require maturity and preparation. We don't just give teenagers keys to cars. We don't just let them drink. We don't let them gamble. We don't put them into voting booths until they're ready to do that. They have a lot of things that they need to learn about life, about society, about their peers, that they are currently not engaging in. The status quo, I think everyone on this table agrees, is not where we want to stay. If we want to invest in the Neil Stephenson future, that is one version. I'm not buying it. That book is going to exploit my kids' data and sell them products. Everything that we talked about being so great for kids exploits them for money. That is not the future I'm interested in investing in. I would like us to more radically rethink how kids engage in technology and really think about what is possible, not just with law and technology, but also as parents and families and PTO organizations. So I will finish by saying that we should all touch more grass, period. We should all touch more grass, but an adults-only internet would be better for everyone. So if you agree and you don't like patricide, vote for...
Ladies and gentlemen, please give it up for our debaters. Big round of applause. All right, now it is time for you to have your voice, and we are going to do the post-debate poll. There's a QR code and the short link. We'll give it a minute to register your vote, and we will see who moved the needle.
So it's like 69, I think.
69 was where we were.
Yeah.
We will let the dramatic tension build.
Anonymous kid.
That's how it
Anonymous
happens.
kid. Right, there we are.
All right, here goes.
Okay, here we are. The results. Oh! Wow! Congratulations to the proposition.
Lose. But by narrow margin.
had a hard task, and they reached it with aplomb. So thank you very much. Back to you, Reid.
3 announcements before we beg them to do another hour of the debate. We start back here tomorrow, a little bit earlier time, 8:30 in the morning. We've got Mike Conover doing a keynote on AI. We've got a panel on AI and likeness, followed by a terrific discussion about spectrum. Then we finish with the space luncheon. What a day. So much to debrief. It's been fabulous to have you here. And please join me in a rousing ovation for a great, great discussion.